Padma Sagarga Ahom Bangarangara 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 Padma Sagarga Ahom Banjara Guru Padma Sadurga 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 Ahom Banjarangara Padma Sagarga 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 Ahom Banjarangara Padma Sagarga
我觉得你们赶紧换一个类型吧，这个特别不方便。也还好，显得我们
顿时感觉凉爽。咱这房儿搞定没有啊？这房儿搞定没有啊？这房子，钱给了那个吗？
没有，他找管家去核价，管家说临时费用是自己的，说我给你们了。
啊，你不是给了他一半钱？
是啊，
然后就是要找管家核价。
我要走程序嘛。
人家不卖了。
卖呀卖呀，我还是给他走钱。哦，一波一个程序。
哦，这样的意思。就管家说这房2万块钱，你到这还要8万。
那不行，那不好，那管家说2万就给他2万。
这样子的话，就会有一个很大的破绽。
这私下交往也有过是吧？
那自己看吧，我也不知道，不参与。
私下交往就更增长炒房的这个。
不知道参与不了这个事情，好像不。当时我家有房是拉住我，没有说要就要离开学校。
说了不能私交易。
那个车那不是私下交易的。所以不私下。
帅哥，走，马上。
反正离不够就行了嘛，就离长这么帅。
一个帅不帅，就是有点黑。
原离长这么帅。
这个他模拟的都像。
私下交易。
跟上，你要跟上。哦，原来你就是要跟上。
也行，这也是太吓人了。我身上真的是牵着寒冷的感觉。一个和他的这个显示器挪一下，我看他那个字儿，显示器放哪？
对呀，现在整个房子还挺富的。老管家吧。
Padma Sagarga Ahom Bangarangara 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 Padma Sagarga Ahom Banjarangara 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 Padma Sagarga ahum banjarengara 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 Padma Sagarga Ahom Banjarangara 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 Padma。
尊敬的各位道友，大家好，欢迎您来听经闻法。下面播送进入经堂的注意事项：一，请尽量止语，持诵地藏王菩萨圣号或心咒；二，此次共修为内部共修，禁止将拍摄的照片、视频以及相关文字信息上传网络；三，经过人群时，请不要跨越书包、衣物等；四，请保管好自己的贵重物品，以防丢失。五，请保持经堂以及经堂周边的卫生。六，离开经堂时以及来去经堂的路上，请保持寂静。七，已经接受过上师接待的道友，请勿再次排队参与接待。随喜感恩，阿弥陀佛。
Ahom Banjarangara Padma Sagarga 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 Banjarangara Padma Sagarga Ahom 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 Banjarangara Padma
Sambara Sambara Bamana Saramahan Zambaba Humbala Soha Om Sambara Sambara Bamana Saramahan Zambaba Humbala Soha Om Sambara Sambara Bamana Saramahan Zambaba Humbala Soha的南的让人难等着不这些不是让那不白夜上街就当跟的能把不走跟那不是很惨的这个这些是个人民也不咱们的能蹲着共享不电话的给这花了单白跟来共白这钱的这个白钱能很不的他人怕个咱的这花了当那现在能他们这来的共这个不花了也怎么参咱们土兵这些花了别的话别把它想把别了想咱的论讲花了人呢花的呢都是金子呢写的这话公布先不花了菜也娘不这把能别的啥的难看娘不把这个干的上把了都是金把个了相当努了的话这年嘛也想咱能那个呢这些花的金就想这不生活别了想咱的路人前的点就这些世界年当中文章也龙干嘛了年这个东东很错花了没们那不接them咱那往别人可多的人前的他们就也接想咱能真能晓得别的吧就讲的别的嘛个时候我准备花了别的吧这些他们接了想咱的路上班进步点中真没得问没当我担当接了不也能可的中他接不当了话没没上南头这的还是可的路当这是来当把话的这就定的真才能啥什么你是给了这些别人就真的讲话也了想着了路那个这个当的下娃送吧了这个当你娃的菜娃跟人人都懂了花里别的什么都能有人能知这些的那个朋什么做不了手我们红绳的真的把娃忘个不长的de ton sosur taqba yeshirka na chagdebdan ba miram janni durjenya mana wa chimbu khol churka na wa amthai durji chum jitin wa shi thiji ji chagaze padma jerbon khondinga wam jer namjada zanna wanchin heraka sawa yeshi banzar wara dem chagndor pa jerpo de chinen ter malle chergi elam chorif shedeman chagtanam chagje wam shi de ton kar wam zal durji wa ki so na tom niam ba chim bu nga nya da dur ji kai kar chi cha sam yo gag me ne song ge ja di kan sam ge o da zara mar pon khon di on la cha ba de ji tam cha de yo sha da par shen dur ji cha ba chim bu ti ji na nam ni ngo drum dur kim chok to da ja dur ji cha cha ja ba chim bu yi na cha da de wa chim bu dum she le pam thai jem cha da va ro kar jan nan dal ji kon va she va jem ji pa ram jam sa sa ma wang gal ha sa wa la ki pi sur wan dip su shin ji lo chok ta na ngo drum dur gi khwa ta da to mi le wan dip she bu ngo ju so lo ma a hu 红是的亲巴拉万个婆长的的东索索的不也是个，马车的那白米让人呢都见你嘛那我亲不坏。那晚太都记住，今天的往事推记记着子，把那么点的不肯定啊，往节日那这了怎能完成黑了个？上来也行，办得了完了和点唱到的不点的不得钱的点的满里节日给了这个绿色的满，朝他们上节往事的东个，往这里都记话我这给错，那冬年白亲不安你了的，都记可以个记着什么用，这没有送个别的看什么个，我这儿买的崩溃。用来吃不的是当着的有想的不的钱，都接吃白钱不推荐呢。那年我准都给吃做多少，都接吃这白钱不一，那这了的外钱不如东西来吧。他已经这了这不如个人家呢，都接公外些外什么这个。他怎么了？一边说完的不心急了，瞧他那我真的给花他的，他米的黄的是不我只说了嘛，红是的钱的巴拉换个婆长的，的东说说的这个不也是个，那这个的的那白米让人呢都见你嘛那我亲不坏，去个那晚他一都记住，今天那黄是推记记着子，但买点不肯定啊黄点的，那这了怎能完成黑这个，上来也是办。这外的点冲多的不点的不得钱的点，满里节给也能超绿些的满，超他们上节黄些的东个，黄子的都是花我这给错，那冬年白钱不安你了的，都是可以个记着什么用，我们的送个别的看什么个，我这儿买的崩溃的用来吃不着的，当着的有想的不的钱，都是这个白钱不推荐呢，那年我准都给你说做多少，都是这个白钱不一，那这了的白钱不。东西来吧，他已经这了这不如个人难得的公外些外什么这个不，咱们啥什么换个他走来，给比说完的是心急了，瞧他那我真的给花他的，托米的黄的些的不我只做了，真淡定公不讲话那个样，别人在了路，刚个路住着你真这人也得了那么大的是的位，真你的东个，这是那是别人你的姐。تكر لغوان زن كون تغجب تنر ماري ممتن الدم على جيزر دوتغ كنا بجيم ترزي يلا جيجي غيون صوم جيتر جدغ نيمو نيلهون ليجي جدغ دم زدجا ماري ممزد دم على نيكا جنيل شم زدر جنام دوني تغجام سرجيم ترس يندن ليزغ جيجي توشك تشغب جدام جني جمجي بدغلو ممسلم جام خلق يعلم تدوم عربتنا دوم عربتنا 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 دوم 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 Arapatana dom 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 Sedan jerjin jerava ola zarjin dagmlo tami mambarab sadani kadam dam chu jonle togpaye lotur pop anawap jeddo solo
这样，今天，我们讲。
Today, our class is on the 7 points of training the mind. Tomorrow, the class is also on the 7 points of mind training. I'll use 2 days to give you the teaching of this text in terms of its stanzas. Day after tomorrow is Wednesday, and on Wednesday, I'll give you a teaching on practice and supplication of Padmasambhava, which was composed by the second Dudjom Rinpoche. I think back in 1990s, I read this supplication, and at that time I had great insights and great feelings towards it. And I think it's really important to chant the supplications to Padmasambhava. Of course, there are so many supplications and lines and verses, but the ones that supplicate, or some of the supplications have very special blessings and carry special blessings. So day after tomorrow, I'll give you the long or oral transmission of that supplication. Thursday and Friday, we don't have any class. And Saturday, I'll give you some teachings of the rules or regulations, or how to deal with the social norms, and Transment Day in terms of Dharma, some of teachings on Dharma as well. So some towards the ways of dealing with the society, and some are more towards the Dharma aspect. I know nowadays, I think lots of the practitioners, they are too extreme. Sometimes either they are too secluded from the society, and sometimes they're too mixed together with the society. So I'm going to give you a teaching in terms of how to then work with the society and your personal Dharma practice. And the next week, I'll give you the teachings on the Vimalakirti Sutra and Uttara Tantra Shastra, as well as Lingyu, which is the Confucius Analect. That's our plan for next week, for the following week as well as next week. And in terms of yesterday, it was the Dharma, the turning of the Dharma wheel of the Buddha, as well as my birthday. I know many of you celebrated it with releasing lives, and I myself feel really grateful. I know lots of people did quite a bit in terms of hosting such events of releasing lives and save them. I feel really happy and very grateful about that. In my life, I feel that the most important, let it be living in this world or dying or passing the world, I think the most important to everyone is life. If we can protect the life of others, it will be the most meaningful. If we were to destroy others' lives for our personal gain, then that would be the biggest mishap. I know that there are about 800 million lives were set free in one single day.
这个今年比较特殊吧，就是要求大家就是不一定是非要这个如意出世吧，就是这个前前后后都可以。所以我们这个计划呢，8月10号之前，把那你们这个放生都可以，包括在这个生日放生当中，那么就是大概是8月10号的时候呢。
then those are all fine. You don't have to do it only in one day altogether. So by the evening of 10th of August, I will collect all the numbers from everywhere about the numbers of lives that you release, and then we'll do a total dedication of merit. I know many of you, and in many different places, you voluntarily release life. During this whole process, I didn't really ask you to release life. Last year I did. I posted on my Weibo and saying that out of all the birthday gifts, this is my favorite, to release life, to protect others' life. So I feel that this year, if I continue to repeat last year's Weibo, my posting, it will be too redundant, and maybe people won't feel really happy about it. Anyhow, there are people still release life to celebrate my birthday, as well as the Dharma wheel turning of the Buddha as a celebration. They send me photos, videos, and I feel really quite touched, because by abiding this world, if we can do small conduct like such to help sentient beings, it will be really meaningful. Therefore, I really want to extend my gratitude and joy towards all of you who've then released life and practiced the generosity of practice of the paramita of generosity, which is a generosity of giving fearlessness to other sentient beings. According to such auspicious connections that we all share, I think such kind of conduct is quite meaningful and valuable. So that's something I wanted to make an announcement of beforehand. The 7 points of training the mind is in fact too difficult to condense it into 2 classes only. Therefore, but I can't really do much about it, because I know people are really busy, and I just had to then condense it into this 2 classes anyhow. Today's class and tomorrow's class is probably going to be a little bit extended than the other classes. Before, my class usually takes about an hour, and maybe I'll give you about 24-25 minutes or so. It might be possible. I'm not quite sure yet, so we'll see accordingly. Okay. I'll give you the oral transmission of the 7 points of mind training in Tibetan language first. I'll give you part of it today and part of it tomorrow.
Ransur Chur, Lamji Ngo, Ganji, Lamji Ngo, Tauti, Lamji Ngo, Ganjir, Jar, Nibar Jitob, no, Tonsum Dima, Tower Sha, Niba Gunzub Shanchip, Sim Gombala, Nyamji and Nile, Nyamjano, Tonlin on Nipor, Permer, Jean Terni, Lonla, Shumber, Nibar Jitob, no, Yersum Tuxum, Gesta, some, Dela Tramba. Kurvi Dela Tramba Kurvi Jolum Kunda Zucker Jean Lembi Korum Nefsum de Xumba Tingen Shanchipti Lamdan Kerva Laxum Tambo Kunzup Shanchip Semji Tingen Lamda Gerva, Nopchit Digbe Game Se, Tingen Shanchip Lamda Leland Tamcho Chiglavda. Gunlap Garden Chever Gum, Dondum Shanchip Semji Tingen Lamda Gerva. Chernong Kuju Gumba is Tony Chunga Lana made Tony Chunga Lana made Jura Caprican, Surgeon Niki, Sting Lambda, Virana, Jura Virdan Tapkim Chogum, Charla Gantu Gumda Vir, Jibat Sirchik, Nyamlin, Cherne Tambana, Mangar Nyambum Dordi, Bastorna Tala Yambrush, Tachin Povi Damgum, Storna Ned Yen Sholomchi. Ngapa Lojung Tsatambana, Chukung Gomba Chigdan di Pambo Niki Sor Zon, Yevde Magic Stad, Gend Ten, Yang Yang, Tapnam Jomba Yin.接下来我们讲这个修行器啊。这个修行器呢，就是曾经大概是 06年的时候，你现在应该有14年前吧，我降过这个，也是好像刚好这个普贤云光的时候呢，降过，当时中共降了8堂课吧。然后主要是讲那个无住菩萨啊，就是无住菩萨，就是我们这个佛子行作者的佛子行的作者，他住的那个讲义，就是在那个上面讲的，然后就是讲了8堂课，就是现在应该好像密成文字，在那个就是《妙法宝库18册》里面，就是如果有那个兴趣啊，或者说有信心的话，那就是你们自己看。
I think it's good to read it. I think for the rest of the year, you can study, and I think you should really invest your own time in studying this text. Whenever we study about Bodhisattva Charyavatara and the Mahayana, the adornment of Mahayana Sutra, those are more theoretical. And in terms of the actual practice, I think it's quite important to study the 7 points of mind training and the 37 practices of Bodhisattva. Those are the supreme pith instructions of how to engage in practice. It may look really short, and you can see it probably only after printed out, only about 1 or 2 pages, but it includes really supreme teachings in such condensed language. Therefore, I really think you should place great importance in such teaching. I thought such kind of teaching is not propagated outside of Tibetan plateau, not properly. In Tibet, in fact, we place great importance in this kind of teaching. Other than on the Tibetan plateau, in the mainland of China, I think the propagation of such teaching is not so wide. In our class, in our curriculum, is it included? It's not included in our curriculum? During which stage would you study this text? Preliminary practices. The audience answered before the Tantra classes. Now I'm a little bit out of the track of curriculum. Anyhow, I think it's quite important to then include it into the curriculum. But for people who don't listen to the classes, then maybe it won't make much of a difference. The ones who listen to such classes, I think it only numbers about 1 drop out of the vast ocean. But for the number of people who don't listen to class, is as vast and limitless. So the 7 points of mind training, it includes lots of pith instructions that may not be as familiar to lots of you. Therefore, today I humbly and I supplicate you with great humility to study such pith instruction like 7 points of mind training. When I translated this, I think it was really short. The translation was rather short, but when I was given it, I taught, and then it was transcribed into a relatively sufficient amount of words. Today, I'll just give you a gist of the teaching, just very brief teaching, to maybe entice you to have some kind of curiosity towards it. I know there are people who listen to my words and would follow my suggestion to read and finish their homework, and there are students who, after my suggestions, they would just forget about my suggestion right away. But even if one or two people in this world would listen to my words and to listen to it, it would be valuable. So I would suggest those of you to study, to listen to the audio. I think at that time there was no video yet, there was only audio. I think video would be great. There are times I listen to audio, and there are I actually prefer video, especially when I watch news. But back then, there was no recording of the video teaching. It was only recording of the audio teaching. In the West, there was some professors who asked me whether they could translate, and I agreed, so I think it's going to be translated. So I think my commentary will be translated into English. The 7 points of mind training is extremely important in the West. Back in the 90s, Diogo Kinzer Rinpoche taught in France before he entered Parinirvana, and then slowly there were other teachers continuously to teach, including Janggon Kongtrul Rinpoche's commentary as well as the commentary of the Blessings of Sunlight. So those kind of commentaries were also taught. In total, there were about 20 commentaries or translation or editions available in English. I think this particular teaching is quite popular in the West, translated into different foreign languages, including English and so on. So I think it's quite important to attach great importance to it, because whenever you encounter some obstacles or anything happens in your life, you will be able to use the teachings that's included in the 7 points of mind training. I've met Sangha members who came to me with their with sobbing and saying that if it's not because of the 7 points of mind training, I won't be able to continuously to survive in this world. Therefore, I really want to give the teaching of this text. It may not be so extensive. My teaching today would be rather brief, especially after seeing you practice in the Dharma Assembly for the whole day. Some of you are already dozing off at this point. I probably won't teach that extensively. But at the same time, you should remember, even for the 4 sentences stanza, what the Buddha sacrificed to gain those stanzas, what he sacrificed to gain that, and what kind of offering and sacrifice he did was really incredible. Therefore, it is quite important to then listen to the Dharma teaching, because it is of great value. Today, according to Janggon Kongtrul Rinpoche's commentary, I'll give you the teaching. Before I give the teaching according to the commentary of Togame Sambo, but today I would give the teaching according to Janggon Kongtrul Rinpoche's commentary. In fact, I think the teaching is rather very similar, but this is the base or rather what I'm teaching according to. The mind training is quite oftenly talked about, including taught in the Dakinis teachings, which means to train the mind to the awakened heart. The most popular mind trainings were brought to Tibet from Atisha. And he studied from the Sir Limpa Dharmakirti and Dharmakshita, especially as Maitri Yogin. So Atisha studied from these three great masters, and then he passed this teaching to Druntumpa, who was said to be the manifestation of Chinrunzik. And then it was then passed to Druntumpa, Sharawa, Langri Tangpa. Sharawa and the Langri Tangpa then passed down to Chekwa. In the later part of the propagation, the teaching of Chekwa, some said that this teaching was composed by Chekwa, and some said that this pith instruction were compiled after Chekwa by his disciples. Anyhow, the teaching was then passed on from this lineage. Therefore, I really hope for those of you in the audience, after receiving this teaching, you could adapt the whole teaching or partial teaching and pass it down to other people. For those of you who are tutors, who are Dharma teachers, then you can teach this teaching. And for people who don't really have such position or such opportunity, at least you can pass down some of the teachings, not on purpose to others. Or what you could do is to make some cards and to then write down each of the points at the front and then have some kind of explanation behind it, or to make it into bookmarks or any kinds of cards that could remind people to train the mind in such a way. This is important, and the most important is that if you can then gain genuine insights from this teaching, if you can gain genuine insights from this teaching, then obviously you will naturally wanting to do something to then pass such wonderful Dharma to others. Just like if you went to a good hot pot store, a restaurant, and then you would say that this hot pot is really delicious, and then you would ask all your relatives and friends to join you to the hot pot restaurant. And if you go to another hot pot restaurant, it doesn't taste good at all, then you don't want to go there again, and you don't want to recommend it to anyone else. So this is the kind of social norm that happens in our society. Similarly to this particular text, if you've gained some genuine insights and genuine benefit from this text, you would want to propagate it. When we chant, during our chanting, there are children running around, and their children then watch different kinds of videos on cell phone. So I think it's quite important to watch the kids. Nowadays, we're having this Dharma assembly, so we have all these children around. I see that there are children, then one is watching iPad, and then dozens of them are behind him watching the iPad with them. So this is not really good. When the kids are there doing that, then you should flicker your fingers and remind them, do not do that. Sitting in the staircase and doing something very distracted. I think majority of the people over here, they're doing a great job in chanting and practicing. For those of you who don't want to do that, and then at least do not be scattered around, scattered physically and mentally. And there are people who came here probably only walking around, not circumambulating, but just casually, randomly walking around. If you're chanting mantra and practice, then do so. If you're listening to the Dharma, then do it wholeheartedly. Do not just partial-mindedly doing anything. I heard the kid singing, and which reminded me to make such announcement. Okay, so let's get back to the teaching. So the 7 points of mind training.
自己什么？哦，自己有感觉才可以讲给别人。
Oh, right, insights. We were talking about you have to have genuine insights. I myself, I really have a genuine feeling towards this text, therefore I really want to teach it. Just as the other day, without any requesting for the Dharma, I really wanted to teach it from my personal experience. As I said, you have to have genuine insight, otherwise you don't want to propagate this Dharma. So, just like me, I have genuine insights. At first, then it says, took me example, first it said prostrate to the one with great compassion. The 7 points, it says the preliminaries, the main practice, transforming adversity into path of awakening, the fourth one, applying the practice throughout one's whole life, the measures or signs of proficiency in mind training, and the commitments of mind training, and the seventh one is a precept of mind training, which then include all the pith instruction of practice, the bodhicitta, or giving rise to bodhicitta. If we can practice this every year, then you'll be able to gain familiarity to this teaching. In fact, I think, first of all, to take the teaching seriously, and second one, to familiarize with the teaching is very important. The first one, it talks about preliminaries. So preliminaries is not the preliminaries like the Nondro, the 5 preliminaries before Vajrayana teaching. In fact, in the Kadampa, they consider that the first preliminary to do is to then practice Guru Yoga. Most of the Tibetan Buddhism traditions, they would consider that the most important is to practice Guru Yoga, to receive the blessings from the Guru. And once you can then visualize the Guru sitting on top of your crown, and then wholeheartedly to supplicate and practice the Guru Yoga, to supplicate to Phuntsogren Rinpoche and supplicate your Guru and give you blessings to please grant your blessings so that I can give rise to ultimate and relative bodhicitta. And once I give rise to such genuine bodhicitta, may my bodhicitta increase and elevate every day and never retrogress on the path. And then you can then practice and chant the chantings of Guru Yoga, like the 4 verses that we chant every day. And then you can visualize that Guru Yoga, the Guru will then emerge into your mind, and you are no other. Your mind is no other than your Guru's mind. So this is the kind of Guru Yoga that we usually practice, and that is exactly why we practice Guru Yoga before class. After this practice, at the second part, we would practice the infallibility of karma, and then the life is impermanent, death is inevitable, as well as the intensity of suffering in samsara. So these are the preliminaries that's taught over here. So whatever you practice, this is quite important to contemplate beforehand. As the other day when we heard the teaching taught by Phuntsog Rinpoche from the video, he talked about it is quite rare that we are born in Jampuvipa, the southern continent, and it is quite rare that we've gained the 10 kinds of favorable conditions, as well as 8 kinds of freedom. Without such kind of favorable conditions, we won't be able to then continue with our Dharma practice. So it is quite important to remember that this kind of favorable condition that we've gained, that is the human body, the human birth we have, how can we waste it? Because you never know what kind of birth that you will gain later on. When you're still healthy, when you're still strong, then you should then pursue the correct Dharma. And that kind of Dharma is the Mahayana Dharma that is beneficial to both self and others. Otherwise, life is impermanent. Death is inevitable. And you never know when you cannot practice in such a way. So it's quite important to seize the opportunity to practice in such a way. As we know, death is not the end, the very end. Because after this body dies, then our consciousness will continue to evolve, to continue to be entrapped in this samsara. So we need to understand the suffering of samsara. And this kind of samsara is not created by anyone else except our own karma, our good, our virtuous, and our evil conducts and evil seeds that we planted. Therefore, it is quite important to practice all good and eliminate all the evil deeds. And if the evil deeds are matured, then there will be less opportunities for you to continue. I'm speaking really fast. I'm speaking really fast. I'm not sure if my interpreters can follow me, but sometimes my interpreters are quite arrogant. They said that the faster you are, the better it is. Therefore, I am speeding up. Just as Phuntsog Rinpoche sometimes used to be really fast, and I couldn't catch up at all. So it's quite important to practice the preliminary practices. Lots of you, I see that I see new faces over here. If you really want to practice the Dharma properly, then you should start with the words of my perfect teacher and give up all the attachments and start all the way from the very beginning, that is the precious human birth, and then all the way to the uncommon preliminary practices. So once you have a firm foundation in all the preliminary practices, then you will be able to succeed in your practice. So this is preliminary practices. This is the first point. And then the second main point is the main practice. The main practice talks about bodhicitta, which then include 2 folds. The first one is the ultimate bodhicitta, and then the relative bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is the ultimate bodhicitta that is practiced or owned by the bodhisattvas and Buddhas, that once they realize the emptiness. We are not at that stage yet, but at least according to the previous master's teachings, then from some similar level we can practice the ultimate bodhicitta in a similar way. We can copy it in a similar way. And then from the aspect of ultimate bodhicitta, it talks about two aspects. One is during meditation, one is post meditation. During meditation, it talks about is consider all things and events as dreamlike, and examine the nature of unborn awareness. First one, it talks about it, consider all things and events as dreamlike, although all phenomena would appear, but the nature of it is not solidly existent. Everything may seem as dreamlike, as illusion-like, like rainbows, but there is no intrinsic existence at all. In fact, when we examine the nature of such awareness, it is unborn. It doesn't have a birth. It doesn't have anywhere to abide. It doesn't have any place to cease. It doesn't have color. It doesn't have any existent nature. It doesn't have any characteristic. Therefore, all the phenomena are dreamlike, and our mind are also unborn. So how about the wisdom that we use as the antidote? In fact, let even the antidote be free in its own place, because the antidote, the wisdom itself, doesn't have any place to abide. So it talks about practice or practice upon contemplation. So that's how to practice in terms of ultimate bodhicitta. And in terms of relative bodhicitta, it talks about rest in the alaya, the essence. When we're practicing, we should then rest in the alaya. The alaya is not alaya consciousness, it is alaya, the luminous, the primordial luminosity. It is not the kind of peaceful state that is called alaya consciousness, which means through practicing through contemplation, then you should practice in terms of ultimate bodhicitta, that is, everything is dreamlike and emptiness. But when you are practicing, when during abiding or meditating upon abiding, then you should rest the alaya, the primordial luminosity. So the previous one talks about the second turn of the Dharma wheel, and the third, and over here, rest in alaya, that is the third turn of the Dharma wheel. And then what do you do between sessions? Then between sessions, be a child of illusion. So you should abide in the during the practice, you should practice the kind of insights you gained through Madhyamika studies, and then in post-meditation, that is between sessions, even when you're talking to others, chatting with others, and then practice as a child of illusion. There are people who practice really well during session, but in post-session, in post-meditation, after they stand up from their cushions and get out of their retreat, they would then start arguing and fight with others. So what you should do during sessions, in post-meditation, you should still maintain such kind of insights that you gained in the abiding aspect. Be a child of illusion. That is the relative bodhicitta. And that is in the abiding practice. And in the relative bodhicitta, it talks about give and take alternatively. How to do that is, in fact, then take the sentient beings' suffering and give all your happiness to all sentient beings. This is Tonglen, or giving and taking. It's not easy to have some sense of equanimity or sense sense of standing in other people's shoes is easy. But take other people's suffering and give other people your happiness is in fact rather quite difficult. But we should still practice in such a way, during which it is quite important to then follow the teachings given by Atisha, where he gives 7 points of essential teachings about Tonglen. And then another kind of teaching is given or breathe in and breathe out. When you breathe out, to breathe out clear, white air to others that carries your merit and joy and everything that is pleasant to you, and give it to all sentient beings, to share to all sentient beings. And when you breathe in, then you should breathe in other people's suffering, including all kinds of cancer, AIDS, and whatever. The other day, I was giving teaching to some of this Tonglen teaching to the volunteers who work for AIDS, for the advocates for AIDS, and some of them felt really scared. What if they really caught it? I said, no, don't worry, you're not there yet. You haven't attained such realization yet. Anyhow, so over here you talked about breathing in and breathe out. In hospitals, I think in hospital there's MRI. During our MRI, the doctor would tell you to, okay, breathe in, breathe out, don't breathe. In fact, when I was doing it, when the doctor asked me to stop breathing, I would purposely breathe out. In fact, the doctor didn't find out at all. At that time, I was just testing out if the doctor would figure out at all. Breathe in, breathe out, don't breathe. In recent years, I went to hospital and do MRI very often, and sometimes I had to stay in the tub for a long period of time. How to abide during breathe out, breathe in, and when you're abiding in not breathing, maybe you abide in Alaya. So how that was during practice. How about in post meditation? In post meditation, it says that 3 objects, 3 poisons, and 3 sources of virtue in all activities. Train by applying slogans. Begin the process of taking with yourself. Begin the process of taking with yourself.
不恨的这种对境，就分别呢有贪心、嗔心、痴心吧。那么有了这痴心的话呢，实际上叫贪嗔痴三毒。那这些贪嗔痴呢，就如果我们断除或者是转为道用的话呢，这就是善根啊。就不管是别人的贪嗔痴，还是自己的这个贪嗔痴，那么我们如果断除按照消沉的，就是断除贪嗔痴，或者是我们转为这个贪嗔痴的话呢，那么这叫做是这个3种善根啊，就是。那么这种3种善根呢，就是
according to then the Mahayana, we talk about transform of the three poisons, but and also giving all of your virtuous roots to the sentient beings, and those are the source of virtue. So that is during the post meditation. In the teachings of mind training, it talks about if my illness is beneficial to sentient beings, please grant me blessing so that I will be ill. If my health is beneficial to sentient beings, please grant your blessing so that I will be healthy. If my living in this world is beneficial to sentient beings, then please grant your blessing so that I may be living in this world. And if my death would be beneficial to sentient beings, please grant your blessing so that I may die. Do you dare to make such aspiration? Yes? Well, today's teaching is rather quite Buddhist-like. It's very Buddhism Today, I'm just going to give you the brief explanation according to the stanzas. But later on, once you have time, you should then read into it yourself. Next one talks about then in all your activities, train by applying these slogans in any kind of activities in your life. Just as Neri Lampa, he said that whatever benefit I would then give to others, whatever failure I would keep it for myself. Lots of the teachings like those are in fact quite important to constantly contemplate. It means that all the benefits I should then serve to the others, and all the benefit should be served to all beings. That's pervasive to the as limitless as the space, and then. So you can practice throat practice, or whenever you have nightmare, whenever you encounter any kind of obstacles, then you can practice Toglen. And then you can chant Namo at the beginning of the sentence, where it says that to benefit all sentient beings, may all the benefits to go to the beings that are pervasive to all the limitless space, and I myself will take all the suffering, and may the ocean of suffering be dried because of my practice. So, accept all the suffering of all sentient beings. May the ocean of suffering be dried. So this is a great aspiration. During our daily activities, in fact, this kind of aspiration and this kind of contemplation is extremely important. Usually, when Phuntsogul Rinpoche goes out to propagate the Dharma, when there's any kinds of obstacles, such as even storms or any kind of obstacles created by non-humans, everyone would stop and then started to chant this verse. So, in those verses, the profound teaching is infused. This kind of teaching, in fact, is not just a theory. Rather, it should be practiced from yourself. Nowadays, we talk about, well, you should practice starting from yourself. You should be the Dharma that you preach. May the suffering of others be matured on myself. May the suffering that would mature tomorrow be matured right now, today. In fact, by practicing in such a way, not only you don't feel suffering, you would then dispel lots of suffering that happens in your life. This is the practice of Tonglen. Maybe from the surface, you would feel that, well, practicing Tonglen is very scary. Everyone wants happiness, wants peace, wants love, but practicing in such a way, am I getting rid of all those beautiful things? In fact, that's not true. In fact, by taking all of this suffering, by the power of the mind, the bodhicitta will be more matured in your mind stream, and more happiness will be matured in your mind stream. So that's the main practice. That was the main practice. It talks about the relative and ultimate bodhicitta. In fact, each of the practice talks about each of the practice are then divided in twofold, which is in meditation and post-meditation. Today we're going to talk about 5 points. Now we are going to talk about the third, which is transform adversity into the path of enlightenment, which then have the general description as well as the detailed explanation. In the general, it talks about when all the world is filled with evil, transform adversity into the path of enlightenment. The evil that is then filled in terms of our phenomenal world, the terrible weather or the kind of detrimental destructions of natural disasters and so on. And then in the sentient beings aspect, then the kind of evil or evil deeds and so on. Nowadays, we're talking about how everything nowadays, in terms of the society, in terms of the economy, everything is not going well. We talk about the general outlook, so that then talks about the obstacles that could come from your family, from your work, or from your relationship, and so on. All of these kind of obstacles and adversities should be transformed into the path of enlightenment. In fact, as a genuine practitioners, they perceive all actions or all kind of events in this world as favorable conditions. Just as a good doctor could use poison as medicine, could use everything as medicine. Similarly, a good practitioner could use all kinds of situations that happens in their life as a favorable condition to then put them into the path of enlightenment, such as slandering, such as all kinds of like when people would slander you out of no reason when you were wronged and so on, they would cry for 3 days, 3 nights, and 3 hours and so on. So as a good practitioner, what they could do is that they can transform the adversity of this world, that is phenomenal world and essential world, into the path of enlightenment. The next one then talks about to make such transformation with the ultimate and relative bodhicitta, and then it talks about the 4 kinds of fourfold practices as a method. So from this part, you'll be able to learn that adversity could be transformed into the path of enlightenment. And after studying this, you should not be complaining about your adversities anymore. Next one says that to drive all blames into one. Meditate on the great kindness of all. What does it mean? In fact, the suffering that you experience in terms of your physical body or the suffering that you feel mentally and different slandering words and criticism that comes from other people. Once you receive all of this kind of negative information and when you feel such suffering, you should realize that all of these kind of situation that you're encountering right now is not because of others, rather it is the maturation of your previous negative karma. To drive your blames into one. The one is not anyone else except your ego. Because of such ego that created lots of negative karmas, now you're experiencing such negative outlook. and everything is because of ego. All of these kind of suffering are because of ego, and because of ego, you are suffering. So whatever situation that you are encountering, you're facing, at that moment, do not blame others for it. At that moment, what you should do is to realize that everything is because of your ego. It is yourself. Lots of people nowadays would say that it's not your fault, it's because I have great attachment towards my ego. It's not your fault, it's because of my karmic debt. It is not your fault, it's because of my negative karmas. Lots of people would say it in a very sad way. In fact, it's very true. That statement is very, very true. It's because of you. All of the negative situation that you're experiencing are because of you, yourself. And during our practice, the sentient beings, in fact, whomsoever you encounter, they've shown great kindness to you, including your parents or anyone around you. During practice, the people who create obstacles, they're also of great kindness to you. There are your teachers who are teaching you, who are training you. Your enemies, your friends, people who were nice to you, and anyone. You should have a sense of gratitude towards all of them. Maybe you won't be able to have such a kind of gratitude towards them. There are people, yes, you can give rise to such a gratitude, and there are people who you may feel that, oh, that person is my Devadatta in my path. Do you have Devadatta around you? So many? How many Devadattas do you have in your life? One? 5. Wow. Okay, now you have 5 sentient beings that you have special thanks to. So this verse talks about relative bodhicitta. You probably understand. All sentient beings had been your loving mothers. Only because of your self-grasping, then they've then perceived as your enemies. So this teaching is taught from such a supreme aspect. The next one talks about from the ultimate bodhicitta's aspect, where it talks from watching your own mind. Your mind is birthless, deathless, abideless, and non-dual. For example, when you hear other people slandering or criticism or obstacles that's brought by others, in fact, this is delusion. This is the deluded mind that is perceiving like such. As we said earlier, in fact, all the phenomena is dreamlike and illusion-like. And this kind of dreamlike, illusion-like phenomena is appearing in such a way it is because of your deluded mind. The nature of all the phenomena is empty, and the nature of it is Dharmakaya. That the nature, although it's empty, it is luminous, that is then Sambhogakaya, and then the undual of these two is Svabhavikakaya. The non-dual is Nirmanakaya. The emptiness aspect is Dharmakaya, and the luminosity aspect is Sambhogakaya. So we talk about this deluded phenomena as the 4 kayas. When you perceive such deluded phenomena, you should perceive it as perceive it as of the nature of true emptiness. And when we can contemplate upon such true essence, then this is of the best protector and it's unsurpassable protection. When you are experiencing some kind of turbulence in this world and some kind of obstacles in your family, you feel this is not something that you want. In fact, this is your deluded mind that is manifesting in such a way. And this is no other than the emptiness and luminosity. And when you can contemplate in such a way, this is the best way to protect your practice. If you do not understand shunyata, which is emptiness, every phenomena could be of quite of a turbulence to you. Today, when I was watching a news, a woman who was committing suicide at the bridge, everyone was trying to stop her, but she jumped. Well, she was saved after. But she wanted to jump the bridge and commit suicide only because she doesn't understand the emptiness. People who don't understand emptiness is really pitiful. So for those of you who are in our audience, at least could you give rise to some kind of understanding? I'm not saying that you have to realize it completely, understand it fully, but if you understand just a tiny bit, to understand that everything is then deluded, is illusory-like, it is nothing, it is of no problem tomorrow, it is definitely of no problem a year after. And then even you would feel it's quite laughable after a year of something that you're countering. In fact, there's so much delusions in your life. The best practice that you can do to work with such delusions is to practice on shunyata, that is emptiness. And this is the nectar, the best nectar that you can practice upon. Just as Milarepa, when he went out to collect woods, firewoods, and when he came back to his cave, he saw this demoness with a gigantic eye. And at that time, when he practiced lots of other practices, it didn't work on that demoness. And when he practiced by abiding in shunyata, and then that demoness ran away. But nowadays, there are practitioners who don't have such relative or ultimate bodhicitta. What do you do then? Then there are 4 practical advices that you can practice. That is, the fourfold practice is the best of methods. Whatever you encounter, apply the practice. When you don't have the ability to practice relative and ultimate bodhicitta that is of emptiness, then what are the 4 methods then? In fact, that's something that we should do it every day, that we should practice daily. Some practitioners, some lay practitioners, and some common people, they would practice in such a way. The first practice is to accumulate merit. When you encounter obstacles, then you should realize that you encounter such obstacles because of lack of merit, and at that moment you should accumulate merits, such as make offering to the Buddha, to the Sangha, and circumambulate the stupa, and make offering for the Sangha to chant mantras for you. So this is not as swift as the practice of relative and ultimate bodhicitta, but at least doing so would help in some ways. Lots of the Tibetan Buddhists or Tibetan people, they would practice in such a way. But in the mainland, I notice when some officials, when they are encountering problems, despite that in their previous time they are in fact quite of opposite of such kind of practices, they would still then pay money to ask the Sangha to chant mantra for them. This, in fact, is a way to accumulate merit, and things could change. Just as when we're ill, if we take medicine right away, then it would help you out. Sometimes it may not be that quick, but it would help you still. The second one is to repent your previous wrong deeds, to confess. Maybe you're not healthy, you're ill. Maybe when people are then slandering behind your back, at that time, then you should chant the 100 syllables mantra as well as practice the Vajrasattva practice, and then abide in shunyata state. At that time, some of the conditions would also change its course, and then things would be a little different. Just as nowadays there are people who say that, oh, I think now I'm ill, it's because I killed many sentient beings before, and now I'm making lots of confess so that I'll get better. In fact, many patients are quite diligent in this practice. The third one is to give, to practice generosity. Practice generosity. So practice generosity to the non-humans and to make a smoke or a fire offering. There are two types of people. There are people who then of higher capacity who then say that, oh, I've made great difficulties to you before, therefore now I would offer everything so that you'll be pacified. And then the second is to practice fire puja or the smoke offering and then pacify the non-human. And then the third method is to then dedicate the merit and pacify the non-humans who are making such turbulence, saying that I'll dedicate all my merits to you, and please do not create obstacles to me. In Burkham, what does Laodi mean? It means thank you.
Like you.
They often say that. In fact, we can also say this to the non-humans who are making difficulty for us. That we can say that, please do not create obstacles for me. That's the third one, and the fourth one is to make offering to the Dharma protectors, because whenever you encounter difficulties, then through the blessings and help of the Dharma protectors, then things would be pacified very quickly. Whenever you encounter difficult situations, then you can make offering to the Dharma palas, and you can then make monetary offering to the Sangha and ask them to practice as well. Yeah, I think people nowadays, especially in Larangar, I think people chant different kind of practices in different times. They would practice the Intermai for different deities and periodically and not consistently. Anyhow, in Larangar or during the practice of during the practice, I think for those of you who do not have the ability to practice the relative and ultimate practice, at least you should practice in these four methods, which are much easier. That is accumulate merit, that is confess your past evil deeds, and to
这种因缘呢，就是他还是通过他的关系来可以转变，就是
and then to practice generosity to non-human, to practice making offering to the Dharmapalas. I think through this kind of 4 practices, it should be really helpful. Especially, I think the Dharmapalas are very powerful, and they will be very helpful in such conditions, in different adversities you encounter on the path. Nowadays, I notice that practicing Dharmapala, the practice of protectors, I see that for the male and the female section of the practitioners, you do really you are very dedicated in doing such practice. That's very good, and that's very helpful. And then the next, so we've then concluded the teaching on the transforming adversity into path of enlightenment. The next one talks about applying the practice throughout the whole of life, which talks about 2 aspects. The one is the practice during your life, and the other one, practice at time of death. So the essence of the instruction briefly stated is to apply yourself to the 5 strengths. What's the most important instruction for you to practice, or most important practice that you can do is, in fact, to practice bodhicitta, to then give rise to the genuine bodhicitta. There are people who ask me to give them blessings so that they can give rise to genuine bodhicitta. Some are pretending, some are genuinely saying that. But this is really the essence of all the instructions, of all the practices, that is to then cultivate and give rise to a genuine bodhicitta. So the 5 strengths over here, the first one is that power of goodwill, that is making good will of then from the bottom of your heart and making a vow that please let me give rise to genuine bodhicitta, both relative and ultimate, from now to the time of attaining Buddhahood. The second one talks about the power of familiarization, that is to continuously to practice to familiarize yourself with bodhicitta. And the third one is power of planting virtuous roots, that is then accumulate good roots or virtuous roots in our daily life. Because for people to then have genuine bodhicitta, they have to have a host of good merits. If you continuously to practice virtuous deeds, then you'll be able to accumulate virtuous roots, and then you'll be able to have a easier time when you practice giving rise to bodhicitta. And the fourth one is power of destruction of ego, of destructing ego. When you have great grasping towards ego, when you're very selfish, then it's detrimental in developing bodhicitta. The fifth one is power of aspiration. So for lifetimes, what we should aspire to is to aspire bodhicitta. Even in our dreams, we should not give up bodhicitta. And you should make aspiration that even when I'm encountering great obstacles, may I never give up bodhicitta. So those are the 5 aspirations, the 5 practices.
这个好看吗？还有一个东西，不是这个，刚才一个小孩给我编的一个东西。好看吗？
A little kid gave it to me. Is it cute?
他亲自做的。
I think he made it himself.
啊？哇，烂了。
Oh, it's so squishy.
啊？ 这样。我也可以走啊。哇！我做个什么？
What should I make out of this plasticity?
一匹马是吧？
A horse?
不耽误大家的。我看你们有些有点困，所以。
I saw some of you are dozing off, therefore I'm entertaining you.
下面。我也可以玩啊。
See, I play Play-Doh really well.
下面，其实这个可以做各种各样的。
In fact, it makes many different things.
做山羊也可以。
I can make goats too.
做就很多动物啊，不做了。
Okay, I'll stop it now.
下面，这是。
So that was the 5 powers you should use during living in this world, and then the Mahayana advice for transference at time of death involves the same 5 strengths. The conduct is important. So the Mahayana advice for the time of death, in fact, it also talks about the 5 powers, also the 5 strengths. So what are the 5 powers? The first one, it is power of planting virtuous roots. At the time of death, you should not have any attachment towards your wealth, towards anything that you possess during this life, any kind of attachment towards relatives and friends. So that's the first one. The second power is the power of aspiration. When you're at the time of death, you should then make a great supplication and prayer to your guru and deity to make aspiration that may I never be depart from the mind of bodhicitta, and that's the second aspiration. And the third one is the power of deconstructing ego, because at the time of death, the most important one to work with is ego, is then that you should deconstruct the attachment towards self. So that's the third one. The fourth one is power of goodwill. Make the goodwill that may I not be depart from the bodhicitta, the awakened heart. That is then the power of goodwill. And the fifth one is power of familiarization. So so at the time of death, then you should practice to then familiarize yourself with the good with virtuous deeds, to familiarize yourself with bodhicitta. And it is important for someone beside you who's your sangha, who is a good friend, to remind you do not have any attachment to wealth, to your family, to your friends, to not have attached to anything. And then there are 5 strengths as well. At that time, you should then sit in or sleep in the reclining lion's position or posture at the time of death, or the 7-branch Vairochana posture, and so on. So those are the 5 strengths or 5 conduct. The 5th one is the measure of mind training. The measures of mind training. The first one is all teaching share a single purpose. Of the 2 witnesses rely upon the principal one, always remain only a joyful attitude. If this can be done even when distracted, you are proficient. So, what is that single purpose first? If all the teachings, Hinayana and Mahayana, whatever teachings that you receive from a Buddha Dharma is only of a single purpose, that is destruction of ego. Out of the 4 measures, then this is the first measure. In fact, over here, in terms of the measures, it goes gradually. The first measure is that whether you have great attachment towards self, whether you have a great ego. If you're a good practitioner, then the foremost requirement is that you do not grasp on self. For those of you who have good practice, who have steady and who are very familiar with practice, then they do not have great grasping towards self. Unlike their practitioners, even if they practice for many years, when it comes to their own business, they get insane. They have a loss of sanity. So this is really the first kind of first and foremost measure, that is whether you still have great self-cleaning and self-grasp. That's the first one. The second one is of the 2 witnesses rely on principle one. Usually, when we say that, are you a good practitioner? There are 2 kinds of witnesses who could then give such conclusion, that is others and yourself. And the most important one is rely upon the principal one. The principal one is yourself. There are people who would say that, oh, this person has really bad demeanor, then this person must not be a good practitioner. And maybe the other do not see your inner realization, and maybe the other person have a really bad demeanor who has good realization, but other people who have a good demeanor, that person doesn't have good realization. The other person wouldn't know. Who wouldn't know the inner realization then? It is only yourself. Other people won't know whether you are a good practitioner or not. But inside yourself, you would say, you would be able to see who you really are. Yes, I pretend to have good demeanor and conduct, but really deep down I have lots of jealousy and anger and ignorance and desire and so on. So when you ask others, other people won't be able to see it. You will be able to pretend it, to fake it. Other people won't be able to see. Just as nowadays we would see some of the people who are working in the service industry, then they may put up a smile, but in their mind they're suffering a lot. There are people who would lie and pretend to others, and they're so proficient in faking. They then do not realize who they really are now. And other people will be able to realize, oh, and this is what that person does all the time. It would fool other people by put up such a mask. But who you really are, you know it. So out of the 2 witnesses, you should rely upon the principal one, who is yourself, and you should realize it. And the third one talks about always maintain only a joyful attitude. Whatever obstacle and hardship that you encounter, as a good practitioner, you would remain in always a joyful attitude without disturbing others' mind and do not disturb your own mind. So when you're encountering obstacles, look at your mind. Do you lose your mind of joyfulness? Whatever things that you encounter, whatever situations you encounter, if a practitioner could face it with great peace and joy, then you'll be able to see that this person is of a good practitioner. The practitioner has attained a certain kind of equanimity. So it's quite important to then abide in such a joyful attitude without being disturbed by other external situations. I think this is quite important and quite difficult to practice. And at the time of difficulty, you'll be able to distinguish whether a person is a good or bad practitioner. There are people who then feel that they're a good practitioner, but upon hearing this verse, you should then really look into yourself and rethink whether if you're a good practitioner or not. The fourth one is that if this can be done even when distracted, you are proficient. Nowadays, we can be then entered into retreat. We can sit in secluded areas. We do not see anyone else. We could chant, and then we may seem to be very devoted. We have lots of devotion and lots of kindness. But what if you were to be placed into a crowd of people? What if you were to work in a group of people who are really evil? What if you were to be in a very distracted place? What if you were to be placed into all those kind of conditions? Would you still be able to practice bodhicitta? If you can, then that's wonderful. Then you can surf online, surf on your cell phone. You can play game and practice bodhicitta at the same time. There's a metaphor where it says that there are the proficient horse riders during their riding, because they're so familiar with riding the horse. Even if there are some changes of the posture of the horse or of the road conditions, they'll recover really quickly. For us who never trained in such a way, then maybe any small things would change, then we would fall onto the ground and hurt ourselves. Just as that maybe we'll be a good practitioner. We are good practitioners in retreats, in secluded areas. But when you hear different rumors, when you hear people criticizing you behind you, when you then encounter difficulties, then at that time, right away your tears would gush out, and then anger will gush out, and the mind, the body, speech, and mind all started to conjure up lots of negative karma. So, for people who can then practice in such distraction, when such training can be done in distracted, you're proficient. These are the 4 measures of mind training. Today we've already we've studied the 5 trainings.
Dobji Yundan Kane Zobate, Tabagan Lai Lam Chogons, Dungal Zamji, Chicharam Narava, so Kangim Sipchana Diji, Niravarazon, Donim the Payabjan and Joey Sherab, Lami the Shanchaban Choda, Tipjedatar, Dajam Kanyam Dukanamaton, Rantuna Jabde, Walla Macha, Jampana Dagba, some Juna James and Tin, Jibber Shower to the Patron Cherala. Sheva Kanda Yapjim Timbi, Tiram Jam Hoda Wow, Jibsana Jisabzon, Kanda Zambo, Molam and Lipton and Bib, Shantabib Shurba, Jamzum Tarshin Show, Mawan Janagab Jagab Jeti, Jam Diringum Tam Yelava, Saratan and Sea, Tata Jam Jam, Yeranim Chota, Jera, Labchan and Chani, Binabim Tatavisho, Zong and Jim did. Sim Jana Man Sim the Boom Sim de Chana Jean de Shi Wolam Tana Don Better Songi Lontan and Tovan Chen Sim Neighbor Salachana Zopera Show Jamila Galaptana Darjai and the Neary Mid Nana Pamde Wally James Tikanayana Mumbandam Konam Tamjara Songi Wuyon Tom the Sud Tashi Kashi Panzo Divji Tera Mali Chirgir Nisu Susaman Mashi Galapam Salacham and Yelavi Galaganawi Sasam Chabara Sandi Kasamamib Shanlabadam Chunyadamam Girab Dimbab Shanlabda Give the name of Shalam Dumber Shanlavaji Chataram Moa Molam and Japaresho Talayata Pansanantaya Awa Budana so high Bami Didi Durji Danjamji Tapa Namru Lira Balamba Karamanto Lomba Ripa Quachim Shim Jimmy the Panzo Javla Sorovan David Jadar Gomb Shanlavanya Laji Kina Chitam Deeper Shanjelo Sorta Toy the Miran Salangamilet and Dever Kim Zipam Trova Sasama Jarava Chani Jigala Shinchana Baba Shiba Solomon Milatam Nova Yam Tagamda Tapa Yashin and Chunks of the John Soshanham Jiba Yam Jeratom Don't keep Jibs and Mala Sorovan Debakasim and Jeredurji she served Chanim the beam Shokjan Kolo Chavan Chayan Tamsi Sama F Tamda Pandi Panta Chon Jirji Javni Jarava Tif Jelasam Tardana Tamcho Jamsu Nim Tir to Bayamela Laksama Dimburim Dotan and Japa Gims Barajaraji Lapa Samdan Nermin Zambayam Depa Soji Nindra Yongajan Tata Shadab Shavi Talanti War Taptanam Shantaram Jiba Chashi Gara